My daughter said, "Mom, let's write a will." I'm 73 years old. She immediately brought a notary. I signed and left everything to her. A week later, my lawyer found out about it. When he read it, he turned pale. This wasn't a will. This was... Good day, dear listeners. It's Clara again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I never thought my own daughter would become my worst nightmare. For 73 years, I'd lived a good life. Raised 3 children after my husband passed, worked as a school teacher for 40 years, saved every penny to buy my house in Portland. That house was my pride, my legacy, everything I'd worked for. My daughter Jennifer had always been the ambitious one. She married a corporate lawyer, lived in a big house across town, drove a Mercedes. But lately, something had changed. She started visiting more often, always with that concerned look on her face. "Mom, you're getting older," she'd say, touching my hand with perfectly manicured fingers. "We need to think about your future. What if something happens to you?" I was healthy, active, still driving, still volunteering at the library, but Jennifer planted seeds of doubt. "What about your memory, Mom? Last week you forgot Sarah's birthday." Sarah was my granddaughter. I hadn't forgotten. Her birthday was next month, not last week. But Jennifer insisted I was confused. The visits became more frequent. She'd rearrange my kitchen cabinets to help me, then express concern when I couldn't find things. She'd call at odd hours, then claim she'd told me she was coming over. "You don't remember our conversation yesterday?" she'd ask, worry creasing her brow. Was I losing my mind? The thought terrified me. Then came that Tuesday afternoon. Jennifer arrived with a man in an expensive suit, carrying a leather briefcase. "Mom, this is Mr. Harrison, a notary," Jennifer said brightly. "I told you he was coming today, remember? We're finally going to get that will done." I didn't remember any such conversation, but lately, I didn't trust my own memory. Mr. Harrison smiled professionally, spreading papers across my dining room table. "Just a simple will, Mrs. Patterson," he said. "Very straightforward. Your daughter explained you want to leave everything to her, which is completely normal for a widow with adult children. My other 2 children lived out of state, Michael in Texas, Susan in Florida. We talked monthly, but they had their own lives. Jennifer was here, helping me. It made sense. "Where do I sign?" I asked. Jennifer pointed to several places, her hand guiding mine. I noticed she was trembling slightly, but I attributed it to emotion. My sweet daughter, trying to be strong while thinking about her mother's mortality. I signed. Mr. Harrison witnessed, stamped, organized the papers into a folder that Jennifer immediately took. "I'll keep this safe for you, Mom," she said, kissing my cheek. "You don't want to lose important documents." They left quickly. Too quickly, I realized later. But in that moment, I just felt relieved. The will was done. Jennifer would handle everything when the time came. That evening, I called my attorney, Robert Chen. We'd been friends for 30 years. He'd handled my husband's estate, helped me with the house purchase, drafted my original will decades ago. "Robert, I just wanted to let you know I updated my will today," I said casually. The silence on the other end lasted too long. "Margaret, I didn't prepare any new will for you," he said slowly. "Oh, Jennifer brought a notary. She said you recommended him?" "I did no such thing." "Margaret, who witnessed this document?" Something cold settled in my stomach. "A Mr. Harrison. He seemed very professional." "Margaret, I'm coming over. Don't do anything. Don't sign anything else. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He arrived in 15. I'd never seen Robert move so fast, and he was 75 himself. His hands shook as I described what happened. I didn't have copies. Jennifer had taken everything. "Did you read what you signed?" he asked. "Well, it was a will, Robert," Jennifer explained. Margaret. He gripped my hands. I need to see those documents now, tonight. His urgency frightened me. What's wrong? I can't say until I see them, but Margaret, promising me you'll call Jennifer right now and tell her I need to review everything. Tell her it's standard procedure, attorney review. Don't let her know you're suspicious. Suspicious? Of my own daughter? But I called. Jennifer's voice was tight when she answered. Mom, the will is fine. You don't need— Robert insists, I said firmly. He says it's professional courtesy. He just wants to review it. A pause. I'll bring it by tomorrow. Tonight, Jennifer. Another pause. Fine. I'll be there in an hour. She arrived with my son-in-law, David. Both had grim expressions. Robert spread the documents across my table, and I watched his face turn pale as he read. Margaret, he whispered, this isn't a will. This is a deed transfer and power of attorney. You didn't leave Jennifer your inheritance. You gave her everything, immediately. Your house, your savings, your accounts, everything. As of today, legally, you own nothing. The room spun. Jennifer stood in the corner, arms crossed, face unreadable. What have you done? I breathed. I couldn't breathe. The walls of my dining room, except it wasn't mine anymore, seemed to close in. Robert's words echoed. You own nothing. Jennifer, I whispered, turning to face my daughter. Tell me this is a mistake. She exchanged a glance with David. Her husband stepped forward, his lawyer voice smooth and cold. Margaret, you signed legally binding documents. You were of sound mind. A notary witnessed it. Everything was done properly. Properly? Robert's voice cut like a blade. You deceived a 73-year-old woman into signing away her life's assets. We deceived no one, David replied calmly. Jennifer has been documenting Margaret's memory issues for months. The cognitive decline, the confusion. We have witnesses, neighbors who've noticed. Margaret's own statements about forgetting things. My mind raced back through the past months. The rearranged cabinets, the forgotten conversations, the concerned looks. It had all been staged, documented, premeditated. You set me up, I said, my voice barely audible. Jennifer finally spoke. Mom, you're getting old. You can't manage this big house alone. We're protecting you from yourself. From scam artists who prey on elderly people. By becoming the scam artist yourselves? Robert's face was red with fury. Watch your accusations, Robert, David warned. Everything we did was legal. Margaret can continue living here as long as she wants. Nothing has to change. But everything had changed. I saw it now in Jennifer's eyes. A hardness I'd never noticed before. Or had I chosen not to see it? After they left, taking the original documents with them despite Robert's protests, I sat in shock. Robert made tea I couldn't drink, spoke words I couldn't hear. Finally, he gripped my shoulders. Margaret, look at me. How much are we talking about? I forced myself to focus. The house is worth about $650,000. My savings. Maybe $280,000. The investment account my husband left, another $150,000. My pension goes directly to my bank account, which they now control. Over $1 million, Robert said grimly. Margaret, they can evict you from this house tomorrow if they want. They can drain your accounts. Legally, it all belongs to Jennifer now. The enormity hit me like a physical blow. I could become homeless at 73. After working my entire life. I didn't sleep that night. I walked through my house, Jennifer's house now, touching things. The piano I'd saved for 2 years to buy. The photos on the walls. The garden I'd cultivated for 30 years. Could they take this from me? Would they? By dawn, something had shifted inside me. The shock burned away, leaving something harder, colder. I called Robert at 6 a.m. What are my options? Legally, it's complicated. We could argue undue influence, diminished capacity, fraud. But Margaret, these cases are difficult to win, expensive. They can drag on for years. I don't have years. They control my money. There might be another way, Robert said slowly. But it requires you to be strategic. Can you do that? Can you pretend nothing's wrong? Could I? Could I smile at the daughter who'd betrayed me, who'd systematically gaslit me for months, who'd stolen my life's work? Tell me what to do, I said. Robert outlined a plan. First, we needed evidence that I was mentally competent. Doctor evaluations, cognitive tests. Second, we needed to document Jennifer's true intentions. Third, we needed to find a legal angle they hadn't anticipated. But Margaret, here's the critical part. You cannot let them know you're fighting back. If they sense resistance, they might evict you immediately, drain the accounts before we can act. You have to play along. Play along with my own daughter robbing me? If you want to survive this, yes. That morning, Jennifer called. Mom, I hope you slept well. David and I were thinking, wouldn't it be easier if we helped you manage your bills? You know, to avoid any confusion. They wanted access to my pension, the last thing I controlled. My hands clenched around the phone, but I kept my voice gentle. That's so thoughtful, dear. But Robert helps me with that. It's all organized. A pause. Robert is very old, Mom. What if something happens to him? Maybe David should be added to your accounts, just as a backup. Let me think about it, sweetheart. After hanging up, I vomited in the bathroom. Then I called my doctor's office and scheduled a complete cognitive evaluation. I called Michael in Texas, but carefully. Jennifer might be monitoring my phone. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. The woman in the mirror looked different. Older, yes, but also harder. I'd spent my life being kind, trusting, believing the best in people, especially in my own children. That woman was gone. Whoever I needed to become to survive this, I would become. Dr. Patricia Wells had been my physician for 15 years. She looked surprised when I requested a comprehensive cognitive assessment. Margaret, you seem sharp as ever. What's brought this on? I explained carefully, watching her expression shift from confusion to concern to outrage. She ordered the full battery of tests: memory, reasoning, executive function. 3 days of evaluation at the hospital's neuropsychology department. The results came back within a week. Dr. Wells smiled as she handed me the report. Margaret, your cognitive function is in the 92nd percentile for your age group. Your memory is better than most 50-year-olds I see. There is absolutely no evidence of decline, confusion, or diminished capacity. I held that report like a weapon, because that's what it was. Robert filed it immediately with the county clerk's office, official medical documentation, dated and sealed. Then he did something brilliant. He had Dr. Wells write a letter stating she'd never observed any cognitive issues during my 15 years as her patient, and that any claims to the contrary would be medically unfounded. Now, Robert said, we need to prove what Jennifer actually did. I'd been thinking about this. She documented everything, Robert. She has neighbors who'll say I seemed confused. She has her own notes. How do we counter that? By showing it was manufactured. Do you still have access to your email? I did. Jennifer hadn't thought to cut that off yet. Robert and I spent hours going through my correspondence. What we found made my blood run cold. Jennifer had been planning this for over a year. Emails to David discussing handling the Margaret situation. Messages to her sister Susan in Florida, messages I'd never been copied on, describing my supposed memory problems, asking if Susan wanted her share of the proceeds when they sold my house. Susan had replied, I don't feel right about this, Jen. Mom seems fine when we talk. Jennifer's response. She's good at hiding it. Trust me, this is best for everyone. You'll get your $200,000. My daughter had tried to bribe my other daughter into silence. And Susan, gentle Susan, had refused. But she hadn't told me either. There were more emails. Jennifer researching elder law, searching for how to get power of attorney without parent knowing, contacting estate liquidation companies about a large house in Portland, available soon. She was planning to sell my home, I whispered. Before the papers were even signed, Robert printed everything. This shows premeditation, Margaret. She didn't just take advantage of a confused moment. She orchestrated this. But we needed more. We needed proof that I hadn't been confused during the signing. I remembered something. Mr. Harrison, the notary. He'd seemed professional, but also nervous. Why? Robert investigated. Harrison is legitimate, but here's the interesting part. He works for the same firm as David. They're colleagues. Conflict of interest? Possibly. At minimum, it shows this wasn't a random notary Jennifer found. This was coordinated with her husband's law firm. I began keeping a detailed journal, documenting everything. Every phone call from Jennifer, every visit, every request. Robert had me record conversations. Oregon's a one-party consent state. I could legally record without telling Jennifer. The recordings were revealing. Jennifer visiting, casual and concerned, asking again about adding David to my accounts. Just in case, Mom. Just to help you. Help me with what, dear? Well, with managing things. I manage fine. Dr. Wells says I'm healthier than most people my age. A flash of annoyance crossed her face before she caught herself. Of course, Mom, but doctors can miss things. That recording went into the file. Then came the first sign they knew I was fighting back. I'd been careful. So careful. But somehow they sensed it. Jennifer arrived with David on a Thursday evening. No warning call, no pleasant pretext. They walked in like they owned the place. Which, legally, they did. Mom, we need to talk, Jennifer said, her voice flat. Robert's been asking a lot of questions, filing documents. What's going on? I forced myself to remain calm. Robert's my attorney. He reviews all my legal matters. That's his job. David stepped closer, and I saw the lawyer in him fully emerge. Margaret, let me be very clear. Those documents you signed are ironclad. Any attempt to challenge them will fail and will only cost you money you don't have. It would be unfortunate if you had to hire expensive attorneys and lost what little independence you have left. Is that a threat? It's a reality check, he said coldly. You signed. You transferred everything willingly. We have documentation of your mental confusion. We have witnesses. We have a legally notarized transfer. You have nothing. Jennifer touched his arm. A warning. She turned to me with manufactured sympathy. Mom, we're not the enemy. We're protecting you. Why are you making this difficult? Because you stole my life, I thought. Because you're my daughter, and you betrayed me. Because I'll be damned if I let you win. But I said, I'm not making anything difficult. I just want to understand what I signed. You signed what we told you, a will, Jennifer said, but her eyes flickered. Was it, though? I asked quietly. The silence stretched. Finally, David grabbed Jennifer's arm. We're done here. Margaret, think very carefully about your next move. You're an old woman living in a house you don't own. Remember that. They left. I locked the door behind them, hands shaking, but I was smiling. Because they'd made a mistake. They'd threatened me on camera. I'd installed a security system 2 days ago, with Robert's help. Everything they'd said was recorded. Point of no return, indeed. Robert filed the challenge to the deed transfer on Monday morning. Not a full lawsuit yet, that would come later, but a formal legal objection based on fraud, undue influence, and misrepresentation. Along with it, my cognitive evaluations, Dr. Wells's letters, the email evidence, the recordings. The courthouse clerk stamped the documents. This will be sent to all parties involved, she said professionally. I knew Jennifer would receive notice within 48 hours. I knew what would come next. I was right. They arrived Tuesday evening. Not just Jennifer and David this time. They brought Jennifer's husband's colleague, another lawyer named Richard Moss. 3 against 1. You want to play games, Margaret? David's professional mask had cracked. His face was red, voice raised. Fine, let's play. We'll have you declared mentally incompetent. We'll put you in a nursing home. We have months of documentation showing your confusion. We have witnesses. Witnesses you coached, I said calmly. Richard Moss stepped forward. Mrs. Patterson, I've reviewed your filing. It's weak. Your cognitive test was taken after the transfer. It proves nothing about your state of mind when you signed. The emails you submitted are taken out of context. The recordings are inadmissible because they show your colleague's conflict of interest? Robert had entered through the back door, his own lawyer presence filling the room. Because they show premeditation? Because they show Jennifer planned to sell her mother's house before the ink was dry? Get out of my house, Jennifer hissed at Robert. Your house? Robert smiled coldly. Interesting choice of words in front of witnesses. I'd invited my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, to sit in my kitchen. She couldn't hear the words, but she could see everything through the doorway. An independent witness to their aggression. David noticed her. He lowered his voice, trying to regain control. Margaret, listen to reason. Drop this challenge, and we'll let you live here rent-free for life. We'll give you a monthly allowance. You'll be taken care of. Taken care of in the house I bought with my own money? I asked. How generous. Jennifer tried a different approach. Mom, please. This is tearing our family apart. Think of Sarah, of your granddaughter. Do you want her to see her grandmother and mother fighting in court? I'm thinking of Sarah, I said quietly. I'm thinking about what she'll learn from this. That it's okay to steal from family? That elderly people can be deceived and discarded? What lesson are you teaching her, Jennifer? Something flickered in Jennifer's eyes. Shame, maybe. But David stepped in front of her. You have 48 hours to withdraw your filing, he said. Or we start the competency proceedings. We'll drag every medical record, every confused moment, every time you forgot where you put your keys into court. We'll paint you as a delusional old woman who can't be trusted, and Margaret, when we're done, you won't be living here. You'll be in a state facility. And if she dies in that facility? Robert asked. Convenient for you. How dare you? Jennifer started. How dare I? Robert's voice was steel. How dare you? She's your mother. They left with threats hanging in the air like poison. The door slammed. Mrs. Chen came out of the kitchen, her face pale. I heard enough, she said. Mrs. Patterson, I'll testify if you need me to. What they're doing is evil. After everyone left, I sat in the silence of my house. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The fear was real. They could make good on their threats. They had resources, lawyers, documentation. What did I have? An 80-year-old attorney and the truth. Was truth enough? Robert returned an hour later with takeout food I couldn't eat. Margaret, I won't lie to you. This will get worse before it gets better. They're scared, which makes them dangerous. Can you withstand this? I thought about my husband, dead 20 years. He'd worked himself to exhaustion to give us a good life. This house, these savings, it was his legacy too. Would I let Jennifer spit on that? I can withstand it, I said, but I needed rest. The stress was crushing. Robert agreed. Take a few days. Stay with Michael in Texas if you can. Get away from this house, clear your head. They'll expect you to crumble. Don't give them the satisfaction. I flew to Texas on Thursday. Michael met me at the airport, his face creased with worry. Susan had told him everything. For 3 days, I stayed in his guest room, slept 12 hours a night, let my son cook for me. Mom, Michael said on the second evening, I had no idea Jennifer was capable of this. I should have been here. You're here now, I said. When I returned to Portland on Sunday, I felt clearer, stronger. The battle wasn't over, but I'd survived the first assault. Now came the real war. The letter arrived on Monday, delivered by courier. Expensive stationery, law firm letterhead. Not threats this time, an offer. David had drafted a settlement agreement. Jennifer would retain ownership of the house and accounts, but I would have lifetime tenancy with no rent. I'd receive $3,000 monthly living allowance. Upon my death, Michael and Susan would each receive $50,000 to preserve family harmony. I read it 3 times. It was designed to sound generous. To someone who didn't know better, it might even seem fair. Robert read it and laughed bitterly. They're offering you $36,000 a year to live in your own house. Meanwhile, they control assets worth over $1 million. And your other children get pocket change, while Jennifer keeps everything. It's a trap, I said. Of course it is. Once you sign this, you're admitting the original transfer was valid. You lose all legal grounds to challenge, and Margaret, lifetime tenancy can be revoked under dozens of conditions they've buried in the fine print. You could still end up evicted. Jennifer called that afternoon. Her voice was honey-sweet, the loving daughter again. Mom, did you get our offer? David worked hard on it. We really want to make this right. Make what right, Jennifer? The misunderstanding. We never meant for you to feel threatened. This agreement protects you. Guarantees you'll never have to worry about housing or money. I didn't worry about those things before you stole from me. Silence. Then, carefully, Mom, that's a very hurtful word. We didn't steal anything. You gave us... I gave you nothing. You deceived me. Mom, please. Her voice cracked. Real emotion or performance? I couldn't tell anymore. I'm your daughter. I love you. Can't we find a way past this? For the family? For just a moment, I wavered. This was Jennifer, my firstborn. The little girl I'd rocked to sleep, whose scraped knees I'd bandaged, whose college graduation had made me cry with pride. Could that person really be gone? Jennifer, I said quietly, if you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. If you loved me, you'd return what you took. If you loved me, you wouldn't have plotted for a year to steal my life's work. How did you... She stopped, caught. I know everything. The emails to Susan, the searches for how to sell my house, the coordination with David's firm. I know it all. The line went dead. She'd hung up. 2 days later, Susan called from Florida. Mom, Jennifer contacted me. She said you're being difficult, that you're refusing reasonable offers. She says you're not yourself. What do you think, Susan? A long pause. I think my sister has become someone I don't recognize. I think she tried to buy my silence with $200,000, and when I didn't immediately agree, she got angry. I think she's in trouble and trying to drag you down with her. Will you help me? However I can. I'm flying in next weekend. Susan wasn't the only support that materialized. Mrs. Chen began stopping by daily with food, company, watchful eyes. She organized the other neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez, the Tanaka family, old Mr. Walsh. They all remembered the months Jennifer had visited, asking them questions about me. She asked if I'd noticed you forgetting things, Mrs. Rodriguez said. I said you seemed fine. She kept pushing. Are you sure? Even small things? It felt off. She asked me the same, Mr. Tanaka added. I wondered why she was so insistent on finding problems that didn't exist. These people barely knew me, yet they rallied. Perhaps they saw themselves in my situation, aging, vulnerable, wondering if their own children might betray them. Robert organized their statements. More evidence. More proof that Jennifer had been manufacturing a narrative. Meanwhile, Jennifer and David went quiet. No visits, no calls, no lawyers appearing at my door. But I knew they were watching, waiting, planning their next move. I used the silence to strengthen my position. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, rooting my pension there. They couldn't touch it if they didn't know about it. I met with a forensic accountant Robert recommended, who began documenting exactly what Jennifer had taken and when. I attended a support group for elder abuse victims. Yes, that's what this was. Elder abuse. Financial exploitation. The words felt harsh, but they were accurate. The group leader, a social worker named Maria, asked everyone to share their stories. When my turn came, I spoke for 20 minutes. When I finished, the room was silent. An old man across the circle spoke. "Are you going to fight them?" "Yes," I said. "Good," he replied. I didn't. I let my son take everything because I was afraid and ashamed. Don't be like me. Fight. I left that meeting with something I hadn't had before. Certainty. Cold, hard, unshakable certainty that I would not bend, would not break, would not surrender. Jennifer had made a critical miscalculation. She thought I was weak because I was old. She thought I was helpless because I was alone. She was wrong on both counts. They came on Sunday morning when they knew I'd be home from church. Jennifer, David, and, surprisingly, Sarah, my 15-year-old granddaughter. Using Sarah was a new low. Jennifer was all smiles, carrying a bakery box with my favorite pastries. "Mom, we came to talk. Really talk. No lawyers, no hostility, just family." Sarah hugged me, her young face confused. "Grandma, Mom says you guys are fighting. Can't we fix this?" My heart broke a little. Sarah didn't know. She thought this was a normal family disagreement, something that could be resolved over coffee and apologies. I let them in. What choice did I have? Refusing would make me look like the unreasonable one. We sat in my living room, Jennifer's living room, technically. She poured coffee like she was the hostess. David helped himself to pastries. Sarah sat close to me, holding my hand. "Mom," Jennifer began, "we've been thinking a lot. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we should have explained things better." "Explained what, exactly?" I asked. "That we're trying to protect you, protect your assets from scammers, from bad investments, from my own decisions?" David leaned forward. "Margaret, with all due respect, elderly people make poor financial decisions all the time. They fall for scams, they give money to fake charities, I've never fallen for a scam in my life, except the one my own daughter pulled on me." Jennifer flinched. Sarah looked between us, confused. "What scam? Grandma, what are you talking about?" "Sarah, sweetie, maybe you should wait in the kitchen," Jennifer said quickly. "No," I said firmly. "Sarah, your mother tricked me into signing papers that gave her my house and all my money. She told me it was a will. It wasn't." Sarah's eyes widened. "Mom?" "It's not like that, honey," Jennifer said, her voice strained. "Grandma's confused about what happened. The stress is making her remember things wrong. I'm not confused. I have the documents. I have emails where your mother planned this a year in advance. I have recordings." "Recordings?" David's voice sharpened. "You've been recording private family conversations?" "Not private. I recorded in my own home, which is legal. And I'm glad I did, because I have you threatening to put me in a nursing home." Sarah pulled her hand from mine. "Is this true, Mom? Did you take Grandma's house?" Jennifer's mask cracked. "Sarah, you don't understand how complicated this is. Grandma's getting older. She can't manage." "She seems fine to me." Sarah's voice rose. "She's always been fine. Why would you—" "That's enough, Sarah," David snapped. "This is adult business. I'm 15, not 5, and this is my grandma. Go to the car," Jennifer said coldly. "Now." Sarah looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Grandma, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know, sweetheart. This isn't your fault." After Sarah left, the masks came completely off. Jennifer's face twisted with something ugly: frustration, rage, desperation. "You just turned my daughter against me. You happy now?" I told her the truth, something you should try. David stood abruptly. Here's the real truth, Margaret. You're 73 years old. You have no income except Social Security, which we control access to. You have no assets. You're living in a house we own out of our generosity. You're fighting with attorneys you can't afford. How long do you think you can sustain this? As long as it takes. Jennifer leaned in close. Mom, please. Just sign the settlement. Accept the allowance. Live here peacefully. Why are you being so stubborn? Because you betrayed me, I thought. Because you destroyed my trust, my sense of safety, my belief in family. Because I'd rather die fighting than live as your prisoner. But I said simply, because it's wrong, Jennifer. What you did is wrong, and I won't pretend it isn't. Wrong? Jennifer's laugh was bitter. You want to talk about wrong? You gave Michael and Susan everything. Emotional support, validation, pride. I was the one who stayed here, who visited every week, who actually helped you. And what was I going to get? A third of whatever was left after you probably gave most of it to charity? I earned this house, Mom. I earned it. There it was. The real reason. Not protection, not concern, entitlement, greed, resentment. You earned nothing, I said quietly. You're my daughter. I loved you. That should have been enough. Love doesn't pay my mortgage, Jennifer shot back. They left in fury, David's parting words a threat. You have 1 week to accept the settlement. After that, we stop being nice. We start competency proceedings. We evict you. We cut off everything. 1 week, Margaret. The door slammed. I sat in the silence, trembling. Not just from fear, though that was there. From something else. A terrible, clarifying rage. She'd used Sarah. She'd brought my granddaughter as a prop, as emotional manipulation. What kind of mother does that? I walked to my bedroom and looked at the photo on my nightstand. Jennifer at 5 years old, gap-toothed and grinning. Where had that child gone? Then I picked up my phone and called Robert. Whatever we need to do, I said. Whatever it costs. We're taking them to court. Are you sure? I thought of Sarah's confused, betrayed face, of Jennifer's cold admission, of David's threats. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Not a full trial, that would take months, but a preliminary hearing to determine if there were sufficient grounds to void the transfer and restore my assets pending investigation. Robert worked around the clock. We had evidence, but we needed it organized, presentable, irrefutable. The forensic accountant had traced Jennifer's finances. She and David were deeply in debt. Over $400,000 in credit cards, a second mortgage, threatened foreclosure. My assets weren't a bonus for them. They were a lifeline. That changed everything. This wasn't just greed, it was desperation. The courtroom was small, corporate, fluorescent. Judge Linda Morrison presided, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s. Jennifer and David sat with their attorney, Richard Moss. Jennifer wore pearls and a conservative dress, playing the concerned daughter. David's face was carefully neutral. I wore my best suit, sat straight-backed beside Robert. I looked every one of my 73 years, but I looked competent, alert, angry. Judge Morrison reviewed the filings. This is a dispute over a deed transfer and power of attorney executed 7 weeks ago. Mrs. Patterson claims fraud and undue influence. Mrs. Blake claims her mother voluntarily transferred assets due to declining mental capacity. Mr. Chen, you're representing Mrs. Patterson? Robert stood. Yes, Your Honor. And we have substantial evidence that this transfer was obtained through systematic deception and manipulation. For the next hour, we presented everything. Dr. Wells testified about my cognitive evaluations, emphasizing that I showed no signs of decline, then or now. The neuropsychologist presented test results, comparing them to national standards. I was in the top percentile for my age group. If Mrs. Patterson was confused or declining, Doctor, Robert asked, what would you expect to see? Significant deficits in memory, reasoning, executive function. We saw none of that. Mrs. Patterson's mind is sharp. Richard Moss cross-examined. But doctor, couldn't she have had a temporary confusion the day she signed? A moment of clarity surrounded by fog, not consistent with the test results or her medical history. If there were cognitive issues, they'd show a pattern. There is no pattern. Then came the neighbors. Mrs. Chen testified about Jennifer's fishing for evidence of confusion that didn't exist. Mr. Tanaka described the same. Mrs. Rodriguez added that I'd always seemed perfectly capable. Did Mrs. Blake seem concerned, or did she seem disappointed when you didn't report confusion? Robert asked. Disappointed? Mrs. Rodriguez said, like she wanted me to say Mrs. Patterson was having problems. Jennifer whispered urgently to her attorney. Her composure was cracking. Then Robert dropped the bomb, the emails, projected on a screen for everyone to see. Jennifer's words, stark and damning. Handling the Margaret situation, she's good at hiding it. You'll get your $200,000, available soon. Judge Morrison read them carefully. Mrs. Blake, you wrote these emails? Jennifer stood, shaking. Yes, but they're out of context. I was genuinely concerned. You were concerned about selling your mother's house a year before she signed any documents? The judge asked sharply. I was planning ahead in case you successfully manipulated her into signing it over, Robert interjected. Objection, Richard Moss shouted. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Mr. Chen, rephrase. But the damage was done. The judge had seen Jennifer's emails, her premeditation, her coordination with David's firm. Then came the recording from the confrontation at my house. David's voice filled the courtroom. You're an old woman living in a house you don't own. Remember that. We'll have you declared mentally incompetent. We'll put you in a nursing home. Jennifer was crying now, mascara running. David's face had gone white. Judge Morrison stopped the recording. Mr. Blake, you're an attorney. You threatened your elderly mother-in-law with forcible commitment to obtain her compliance? Your Honor, that was taken out of context. We were emotional. Context? The judge's voice was ice. What context makes threatening an elderly woman in her own home acceptable? The final blow came from the forensic accountant. Mrs. Blake and Mr. Blake are in severe financial distress. Foreclosure proceedings on their home began 2 months before Mrs. Patterson signed these documents. They needed immediate cash. Mrs. Patterson's assets provided that. So this wasn't about protecting Mrs. Patterson, Judge Morrison said slowly. This was about saving yourselves. Silence. Jennifer broke. I panicked, okay? We were losing everything. I didn't know what else to do. She's my mother. She was supposed to help us. That's what mothers do. David grabbed her arm, trying to stop her, but she pulled away, crying. She has all this money just sitting there while we're drowning. It's not fair. I'm her daughter. Jennifer, stop talking, David hissed. But she couldn't stop. I took care of her for years, visited every week, listened to her boring stories. I earned that money. Judge Morrison's expression was granite. Mrs. Blake, you've just admitted this transfer was motivated by your financial needs, not your mother's welfare. You've admitted you felt entitled to her assets. You've admitted deliberate deception. The courtroom was utterly silent. I'm voiding the transfer, the judge said. Effective immediately. All assets returned to Mrs. Patterson's sole control. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full investigation into Mr. Harrison's role as notary and any potential violations of legal ethics by Mr. Blake's firm. This hearing is concluded. The gavel fell. Jennifer collapsed in her chair, sobbing. David sat frozen, the reality of what they'd lost and what they might face in criminal proceedings settling over him. I stood. My legs were steady. My mind was clear. I'd won. The aftermath moved swiftly, like dominoes falling. Within 48 hours of the judge's ruling, the county clerk processed the reversal. My house was mine again. My bank accounts were released back to my control. Every penny Jennifer and David had touched was frozen pending full accounting of what they'd spent. They'd spent $47,000 in 6 weeks. On what? Luxury purchases, apparently. A new car lease for Jennifer. Designer handbags. A vacation to Hawaii they'd taken while I sat in my house wondering if I'd become homeless. The forensic accountant compiled every receipt, every transaction. Robert filed for full restitution plus damages. But the real consequences were just beginning. The Oregon State Bar launched an investigation into David's conduct and his firm's involvement. Using a colleague as a notary on a transaction where you had direct financial interest, threatening an elderly client with commitment to force compliance, the ethics violations were staggering. Mr. Harrison, the notary, turned state's witness within a week. He'd known something was wrong, he admitted. David had pressured him, told him it was just helping out family, that everything was above board. But Harrison had documented his concerns in personal notes. Notes he now handed over to investigators. David was suspended from practicing law pending the investigation. His firm, wanting to avoid the scandal, quietly let him go. Without his income, their financial situation collapsed completely. The foreclosure on their house proceeded. They had 30 days to vacate. Jennifer called me once during this time. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mom?" Her voice was hollow. "We're losing the house. Sarah is devastated. We have nowhere to go." I waited. She wasn't calling to apologize. She was calling to ask for help. "David thinks we might be able to rent an apartment if I can find work, but my only experience is part-time retail, and that was 20 years ago. And if David loses his law license permanently..." She trailed off. "Mom, please, can you help us? Alone? Just enough to get on our feet?" The audacity was breathtaking. "Jennifer, you stole over $1 million from me. You threatened me, gaslit me, tried to have me declared incompetent. And now you want a loan? I'm your daughter," she said desperately. "I made mistakes, I know that. But I'm still your daughter. And Sarah, she's your granddaughter. You'd let her suffer for my mistakes." "Sarah is welcome in my home anytime. You and David are not." "You can't mean that." "I mean exactly that. You're not welcome in my house. You're not welcome in my life. You made your choices. Now live with the consequences." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from uncertainty, from finality. Susan flew in from Florida the next week. She'd been following everything from afar, providing statements when needed, offering support. Now she came to see me in person. "Mom, I can't believe Jennifer did this," she said, sitting in my kitchen, drinking tea. When she emailed asking if I wanted my share, I thought she was just being weird. I never imagined. "You didn't tell me," I said gently. Susan looked ashamed. "I know. I should have. I didn't want to believe my sister was capable of this. I thought I was misunderstanding. But you didn't take the money." "Of course not. Mom, you're healthy, you're competent. Your money is yours. I have my own life, my own income. I don't need your assets, and I certainly wouldn't steal them." It was healing, in a way, to know that Jennifer was the aberration, that my other children still had integrity. Michael called weekly from Texas. "Mom, I'm so proud of you. You could have rolled over, accepted their settlement. But you fought. You won." "I had good help," I said, thinking of Robert, the neighbors, the doctors, everyone who'd stood by me. The criminal investigation into Jennifer and David's actions moved forward. The district attorney was considering charges: elder abuse, fraud, conspiracy. Jennifer might face jail time. David would almost certainly lose his law license permanently. Part of me felt guilty. They were destroying themselves, and I was allowing it to happen. But then I remembered Jennifer's cold eyes when she admitted she'd earned my house. David's threats. The calculated year-long manipulation. They'd made their bed. Let them lie in it. Sarah reached out through a carefully worded email. She was staying with David's parents temporarily, hating every minute. She wanted to see me. Could she visit? I said yes immediately. She arrived on a Saturday, taking the bus across town. She looked older than 15 now, burdened by adult knowledge of betrayal and consequences. "Grandma, I'm so sorry," she said, hugging me tight. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know, sweetheart, this isn't your fault." We spent the afternoon in my garden, weeding, planting, talking. She told me about the foreclosure, the fights, The way her parents blamed everyone but themselves. "Mom keeps saying you ruined us," Sarah said quietly. "She says if you'd just been reasonable, none of this would have happened." "What do you think?" I asked. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I think she ruined herself. I think she thought she could get away with it. And when she couldn't handle losing. It's not your fault, Grandma. You just defended yourself. Smart girl, she'd be okay." My life slowly returned to normal, better than normal. I had my house, my security, my independence. More than that, I had my dignity. Jennifer and David's lives spiraled downward. David lost his license. Jennifer filed for bankruptcy. They divorced within 6 months. David blamed Jennifer for everything. Jennifer blamed David. Sarah came to live with me during the worst of it, which I welcomed. I'd won more than a court case. I'd reclaimed myself. 6 months after the court ruling, my life had transformed in ways I hadn't anticipated. The house felt different now. Truly mine, in a way it hadn't felt even before Jennifer's betrayal. I'd reclaimed it, fought for it. I redecorated the living room, painted the kitchen a cheerful yellow, planted roses in the garden that had nearly been torn away from me. Sarah lived with me full-time now. Her mother had visitation rights, but Sarah rarely chose to use them. She was thriving, getting straight A's, talking about college, healing. "Grandma, NYU accepted my early application," she told me one evening, her face glowing. I'd already set aside $100,000 in a college fund for her, separate from anything Jennifer could ever touch. "I think we can work something out," I said, smiling. Susan visited from Florida, and we rebuilt our relationship. Michael called every week. My real children, the ones who valued me as a person, not an asset. The neighbors who'd supported me became true friends. Mrs. Chen and I had coffee every Tuesday. We formed a small community of elderly people looking out for each other, making sure no one faced what I'd faced alone. I joined the board of the Elder Abuse Prevention nonprofit. I spoke at community centers, senior facilities, anywhere people would listen. "Don't think it can't happen to you," I'd say. I never thought my own daughter would betray me. "Stay vigilant. Keep your independence. Don't sign anything without your own attorney reviewing it. And fight if you need to. You're stronger than you think." My testimony helped change Oregon state law. New protections requiring independent legal representation for elderly people signing over significant assets, mandatory waiting periods, stricter oversight. Margaret's Law, they called it. My attorney Robert cried when the governor signed it. Meanwhile, Jennifer and David's world continued its collapse. David's law license was permanently revoked. The ethics board found multiple violations beyond just my case. Without a law degree, he worked as a paralegal for a fraction of his former salary. His expensive car was repossessed, his reputation destroyed. Jennifer faced criminal charges. The DA offered a plea deal, 5 years probation, restitution, community service, and a felony conviction for elder abuse. She took it to avoid jail time. A felony record made employment nearly impossible. She worked part-time at a grocery store, struggling to make rent on a studio apartment. The woman who'd driven a Mercedes now took the bus and bought discount groceries. She tried to contact Sarah frequently, but Sarah had built walls. "She calls crying about how hard her life is," Sarah told me. "She never asks how I am. She never apologizes. It's always about her." "You don't have to have a relationship with her," I said gently. "I know, and I don't think I want to, maybe not ever." The divorce between Jennifer and David had been vicious. They'd blamed each other, fought over their limited assets, destroyed each other as thoroughly as they'd tried to destroy me. David eventually moved to another state, trying to start over. Jennifer stayed in Portland, perhaps hoping for reconciliation with me. It wouldn't come. She was a cautionary tale, nothing more. Meanwhile, I thrived. At 73, I'd won a battle I never should have had to fight. I traveled, visited Michael in Texas, Susan in Florida, took Sarah on a college tour, went to Ireland and walked the cliffs of Moher with the wind in my face. I was free, truly, completely free. Jennifer had wanted my wealth, my security, my assets. She'd gotten none of it. Instead, she'd lost everything: her family, her dignity, her future, her daughter's love. I'd learned a hard truth. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are capable of the deepest betrayal. But I'd also learned something more important. You're never too old to fight back. You're never too old to reclaim yourself. You're never too old to win. So that's my story. My daughter tried to steal my life. I fought back and won. What did I learn? That trust must be earned, even from family. That age doesn't mean weakness. That silence enables abuse. That fighting back is always worth it, even when you're scared. If you're facing something similar, elder abuse, manipulation, betrayal, know this: you're not alone. You're not helpless. Document everything. Get independent legal help. Tell someone. Fight. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought or accepted Jennifer's settlement? Share your thoughts below. Subscribe for more stories. And most importantly, protect yourself and the elderly people in your life. Thank you for listening. Stay strong.